Hello world, welcome to another episode of my weekly rant about ideas to change our African mindsets. My name is Emmanuel Kirunda, a three-time author of books about self-transformation within the African context. Today, I'll be responding to a viewer's comment which highlights how Americans are viewed in Africa. Someone commented on an earlier video of mine to the effect that in America, talents are developed and catered for as early as year one, while in Africa they are not. He said this to explain my discussion that in America, even school dropouts end up contributing greatly to societal development. You know, growing up in Africa, the image we are fed of America comes to us through two ways: a biased education and Hollywood movies, which combine to influence our perception of America as a land of milk and honey, and the Americans as heroes who do great things against all odds. Without putting all this information in their proper context, we end up holding America in a very high regard, while at the same time we develop self-pity and despise our own societies. Having lived in America for 13 years, from my late teens to the early 30s, and having traveled to more than 30 out of the 50 American states during that time, I can speak from first-hand experience, which is informed by my interactions with poor and rich Americans, educated and uneducated Americans, liberal and conservative Americans, and so many other segments of Americans I've interacted with. For example, Native Americans in New Mexico and Italian and Jewish Americans in New York. All this vast first-person experience has taught me that what makes Americans do great things, including many who drop out of school, is not that they are more talented than us who grew up in Africa, but rather it is due to something totally different. I covered this topic to great lengths in my first book, The Fourth Heritage, but to recap it here, what makes the Americans tick, or what has enabled them to be the most powerful country in the world over the last 100 years or so, is their unique belief and embrace and fighting for the idea that each person has a fundamental personal freedom that can't be taken away or dictated to by society or the government. It is not true that from an early age their talents are more developed than ours. No. Rather, what is true is that from an early age, as early as year one, parents, the wider society, and government teach kids to know themselves as unique individuals who can speak freely, express their personalities, have personal space, and kids are free to disagree with other people. I was often amazed when I visited American homes, and you could see kids as early as a few years old having their own bedrooms, and their parents worked more to develop the kids' individuality, as opposed to our societies in Africa, where most of us growing up as late as 8-10 years old, we are castigated or even physically beaten if we don't conform to tribal or group norms. It is also very common, even up to now, to hear the American government, especially their presidents, keep emphasizing to their citizens that you should not trust the government. Imagine the government saying that. The American people have this, what they call the American way, which is that people are supposed to rely on themselves and not the government. All these cultural norms are what separates the Americans, a relatively young country compared to many other global powers, to end up being the country that most influences the whole world. For example, in terms of education, entertainment, language, pop culture, economics, the military, and many other spheres of influence. There are other societies in this world that are also with a global presence. For example, Russia, Germany, China, France, etc. But they do their influence not based on the value of personal freedom, but rather other values. So, to conclude this video, I don't believe American kids have more talents than we who grew up in Africa, but rather their society has this very consequential value of making sure each kid grows up to appreciate individual freedom, which translates into kids having original thinking, and oftentimes kids internalize self-belief and the ability to act based on their own dreams and imagination. Thank you for watching, and remember, the struggle is to change our mindsets.